Hey, this is Dr. Taylor, and as we start this week, I realized that a lot of you are working on your term project, and I thought it might be helpful for me to identify some of the commonly occurring problems from past term projects, things that you could avoid, and therefore increase the likelihood that you're going to get the grade that you want. There's basically two kinds of problems that are most common. The first is problems with the sources themselves. The second kind of problem is with the commentary that you write in connection with those sources. So problems with the sources. First, it's really common for people to choose as their sources just journal articles because those do deal with research. Of course, the assignment isn't to collect some journal articles. The assignment is to collect some accessible, mainstream kinds of content that deal with research. So maybe if you have one journal article that's particularly accessible and user-friendly, that might be okay. But having a collection of 2 or 3 or 5 journal articles, that's just not going to fly. Another problem that comes up not infrequently is that people select sources that all deal with the same research. So the journal often sends out a press release, and then lots of different publications will pick up that press release and write about the same article, which means that you can go to the internet and find lots of different specific blog posts by lots of different authors, but they all refer to the same underlying research, the same paper, the same findings, whatever. That's not helpful to have 8 different things that all refer to the same research. So a diversity of research findings is desirable. It's also not uncommon for people to include at least a couple really bad sources. And that's not something you want either. You are being graded in part on the quality of the sources that you choose. A couple things that are pretty common, people will include as a source a paper that was written by an undergraduate at some other university and posted online as a course requirement, or maybe it was an honors thesis or something like that. I even get people including as a source in their term project papers that are made available as free samples on plagiarism websites, right? Like they sell term papers to undergrads, and here's a sample, and they use this as a source. These are really bad sources. Okay, don't use anything like that. It's also not uncommon for people to choose sources that are clever but not particularly good, or that they're they're sort of witty or entertaining, but they don't actually refer to research. Now, remember, the assignment is not to choose some sources that you can somehow connect in some way to the topic. It's to choose sources that present information about research on the topic. Right? There's a big difference. Finally, you need to make sure that I can see your sources, right? The bag that you produce has to be, not private. It has to be either, public or unlisted or what have you. And in addition, the sources have to be available to me. If they're behind paywalls and things like that, then I can't see them. Your audience can't see them, and they might as well not be there. Some common problem with the comments that people include along with their sources. The most common one is that it's all commentary, or it's all summary rather. Each comment just summarizes the main arguments that are presented in the video or the blog or whatever the source is, and that's not enough, right? That's not adequate, right? You should be about 50% summary and about 50% commentary. You should be linking and critiquing in some cases, and making connections and things like that. Another thing that happens pretty frequently is the comments collectively just don't make any sense. Sometimes the sources will contradict each other, and that's fine if you deal with that, if you explain that and talk about it. What doesn't work is if you just present sources that are contradictory or conflicting, and then the commentary just says, yep, this one says this. And the next one says, oh, well, this one says this other thing. And if they're not fitting together, it's your job to explain that. Each comment is individual, but it's part of what should be a unified whole, right? So this needs to make sense, not just individually, but collectively as well. And finally, this is an end product of hopefully a substantial amount of work. It needs to be done well. Okay, there's no excuse for spelling errors or bad grammar or other kinds of just sloppiness or laziness. Okay, make this reflective of your best work. I'm very hopeful that these are going to turn out great. I know that time is running short, but keep in mind this is a substantial part of your grade, and your efforts will, time invested at this point is probably time well spent.